Hello, good morning. Edgardo Sambo here once again. And this time we are now on episode number 22. And the topic for today is suicide. Any takers? The word suicide is being defined in the dictionary as the act of killing yourself because you do not want to continue living. Another definition is the act or an instance of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally, especially by a person of years of discretion and of sound mind. In countries where Christianity is not being taught, committing suicide is just but a natural occurrence because it is much easier to commit suicide and end your life rather than face a life of misery and shame. It is a different story when you are a Christian. First, let me define what is a Christian. A Christian is a person who believes in the teachings of Jesus Christ. And one of the teachings of Jesus Christ is that you are not allowed to kill another person, except, of course, when you are trying to defend your own life. And you are not allowed to kill yourself, since Christ said, "Do not kill." The words "do not kill" could be found in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 17. When it says "do not kill," it only pertains to the lives of human beings. It does not pertain to the lives of animals. I know of one pastor who would not even kill a cockroach because he believes that God said, "Do not kill." For me, it is out of logic. If you are not allowed to kill a cockroach, then you are not also allowed to kill other living animals. If you are not allowed to kill animals, how can you use them for food consumption? So it is very literal and very logical that when God said, "do not kill," God was pertaining to the lives of human beings. I have seen some congregations with Christian origin teaching their members that it is permissible to commit suicide. According to the leaders, God had set a day or time for you to die, and if you commit suicide, then that is the day or time which God had set for you to die. Therefore, you killed yourself with the blessings of God. Under this concept, committing suicide is not a sin, since that is your time to die anyway. Please be informed and take note that this logic is not biblical. God had never permitted humans to take their own lives. Is this biblical or not biblical? Let us resort to the Bible for biblical explanations. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verse 17, it says, "You shall not kill," or "You shall not murder." God said, "Do not kill or murder your fellow men." If you kill your fellow men deliberately, and if you kill yourself deliberately, then you are violating one of the tenets or rules set forth by God. Of course, there are exemptions to this rule. That is, if you're trying to defend your own life, or you have done this killing in an accidental way. Of course, God could determine upon himself whether you had committed murder or not. But suicide is being done deliberately, and God could see that you had committed suicide intentionally. Let us say that God had set a date for you to die. And let us presume that you are going to die a year from now under natural circumstances. That is the way God wanted you to die. And here you are committing suicide so suddenly that you are grabbing the right from God that you wanted to die now. You're dying in suicide, do not have permission of God, since it is you who decided to end your own life. Therefore, under this circumstance, you had committed murder, and the victim is yourself. You had therefore sinned against God, and this might be a factor for you to be thrown into the lake of fire in the afterlife. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 39, it says, "See now that I myself am He. There's no God besides me. I put to death and I bring to life. I have wounded and I will heal, and no one can deliver out of my hand." This verse is clear as a bell. Only God has the right to put a human to death and to give life to a human. God also has the right to wound or make you sick, and He has the right to heal you. A human does not have the right to take his own life. Only God can do that. So whatever hardships and miseries you encountered in your life, these reasons are not enough to give you the right to kill yourself. Only God has the right to end your life. In the book of Job, chapter 12, verse 10, it says, "In His hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind." The word here, His, refers to God. Only God has the right to take the life of any creature. God decides when the life of a horse or an ant or a bird, etc., will end. In God's hands are the life of all creatures. The same thing with humans. Our breath is in the hands of God. God decides when our last breath will be. That is the day that we are going to die. But since a human being has a free will, that human can decide when he wants to die. That is by committing suicide. It is tantamount to saying that this human had grabbed from God the right to die. Therefore, that human sinned when he took his own life. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 28, it says, "Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord." There are pagan practices that they cut or wound their bodies in mourning for their dead. We are not allowed to do this. We are not even allowed to put tattoo marks on our bodies, since putting tattoo marks on our bodies are just like wounding our bodies. If wounding our bodies is prohibited by God, how much more when we kill ourselves? In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9, verse 12, it says, "Moreover, no man knows when his hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare, so men are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them." In this verse, it is stating that humans do not know when his death will come. Only God knows when humans are going to die. Why take this privilege of knowing your time of death from God? Of course, you can take this privilege from God by beating Him to it, that is, by killing yourself in your own sweet time. But remember that by doing this, the consequences in the afterlife may not be in your favor. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 17, it says, "Do not be over wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time?" Yes, why die before your time? Life is sweet and full of blessings. If only you follow the tenets of God, live life to the fullest with God's guidance, and one thing is sure, you will never have the thought of committing suicide ever. Let me expound on this topic, suicide. If you are going to ask me, Brother Ed, are all human beings who committed suicide, are they all going to the lake of fire? This is a very difficult question to answer. Because when a person had committed suicide, we never know how he thinks or how she thinks. To commit suicide and to sin against God by committing suicide, your state of mind have to be normal when you killed yourself. But if a person had committed suicide and at that very moment his state of mind is not normal, that means to say he was not thinking properly, then that would be a different story. We as humans would be having a hard time trying to determine that. But of course, we know that God could determine that, whether that person had committed suicide or not. Let me give you another example. If a person is very sick and suffering from pain so much that he wanted to end it all, and he committed suicide, would you say that that person had sinned against God? We as humans would be very difficult for us to set a standard for us to answer this question. In my own opinion, only God could determine that, whether that person, when he committed suicide, had committed a sin against God or not. Let me tell you something about this pastor by the name of Jim Jones. Jim Jones, in the year 1955 to the year 1978, had established a church which he called People's Temple. And there were at least 6 branches of his church in the United States of America. And then one day he decided that he will bring his church to Guyana, South America. There, he established a community, and there he placed all his members to live in that community. and all his members obey whatever he orders. And then on November 18, 1978, he told his members that all of us are going to commit suicide. And how did they do this? They used cyanide mixed with grape juice. And all his members had drunk this grape juice with cyanide on it, and all his 913 members had died. It is considered as a mass murder suicide case. Why call it murder suicide case? There are some who voluntarily drank the cyanide in the grape juice, but not all of them. Some of them do not want to drink the cyanide. But the problem is there were armed men around them, and they were being threatened to be shot at gunpoint if they don't drink the cyanide. So they don't have any choice at all, and they drank the cyanide, and 913 of them had died of cyanide poisoning. Jim Jones had shot himself in the head with his gun. This happened on November 18, 1978, in a compound named Johnston in Guyana, in Fort Kaituma, Guyana, South America. Babies were made by their parents to drink the cyanide, and those younger babies who could not drink the cyanide were made able to have this cyanide by means of a syringe injected to them. Now, would you say that all of these had committed suicide? The answer is no. Those who voluntarily and intentionally drank the cyanide, they had committed suicide. But those who drank the cyanide under the threat of being shot with guns, I would say that they did not commit suicide. They were murdered. And those babies who were too young to drink the cyanide, and their parents made them drink it by force, and those small babies who had syringes injected to them with cyanide, I don't think they had committed suicide, because they did not do it voluntarily and intentionally. Although, of course, I could say that it is only God who would determine this on the last days, if these persons had committed suicide or not. In putting an end to our lives, God will use different instruments to do it. Perhaps God will make you meet an accident and you die. God will put on your body a very serious illness and you die of this illness. Or God would send somebody to kill you, to end your life. Or God would let the plane crash you are riding in and you died in a plane crash. That means to say God had used different instruments, different ways to put an end in your life. But God will not allow you to kill yourself. Killing yourself is different from God ending your lives. If you kill yourself, it was not God who killed you. It was you who killed yourself. Therefore, you had committed murder, and the victim is you yourself. And because of that, you had committed the sin of suicide. I don't understand why people are committing suicide. Perhaps because of too much depression, too much stress, too much problems in their lives. And most people who committed suicide are those people who do not have spiritual beliefs in God. Those people who do not believe in God, they are the people who are prone to committing suicide so easily. Because if you don't believe in God and you are in a state of depression, you are so stressed, you had lost hope, you could not find anybody to help you, that means your only way out is to commit suicide. But if you believe in God and you are so stressed, you are so desperate, but your belief in God is very strong, your hope will never fade away. Your hope will remain in you, and you would tell yourself that there is still a God who is going to help me, who will take me out of this problem, who will take me out of this trouble. So why will I kill myself if God is there to help me? So people who believe in God have a very big advantage in life. When the time comes that they are so depressed, when the time comes in their life, and they could not take those problems anymore, still they will not commit suicide, because deep in their minds they believe that there is a God who would help them. There is a God who will put a solution to their problems. That there is a God who would punish them if they committed suicide. Because suicide is considered as a bad deed. In the book of Revelation, chapter 20, verses 11 to 13, especially on verse 13, it says, each person will be judged in the last judgment based on his deeds, whether his deeds is bad or good. I will be discussing this topic more profoundly when I discuss the topic, the last judgment. But take note that on the last judgment, you are going to be judged by God based on your deeds, and your deeds may be bad or good. And when you committed suicide, that deed is considered to be a bad deed. And that bad deed will be a minus point in your part when you are now facing judgment during the last judgment. And if you had done so many bad deeds, more than the good deeds that you had done, then I would say that God will throw you into the lake of fire. So committing suicide is a bad deed. But when you committed suicide, God will determine if that suicide that you had committed is a bad deed that you had committed or not, because it depends upon your mental health when you had committed that action of suicide. I would suggest to my fellow Bible-believing Christians, even though your problems are as huge as mountains, your sicknesses has no medicines to cure it. Your stress are so much that you could not handle it anymore. There is still hope, and our hope is God. Because God will never forsake you. That is under one condition. If you keep on obeying the laws and tenets of God, God will never forsake you. If you had refrained from committing sins and had followed the laws of God, God will never forsake you. Every problem that you had encountered, God will give you the solutions to those problems. And as long as you have hope in God, you will never commit suicide. If you are going to compare other countries from my country, the Philippines, other countries, they don't believe in God. You would notice on their data, on their records, that there were so many human beings in their country who had committed suicide. Why? Because those persons do not believe in God. Those persons do not have the last straw to hold on to. When you don't have a last straw to hold on to, it is like drowning in the sea. Then you commit suicide because of that, because you had lost hope. You have no hope. You have no somebody to run into to solve your problems because you don't believe in God. But those people who believe in God will never commit suicide because they believe that God is always there to help them in times of trouble, in times of their problems. So my fellow Bible-believing Christians, never entertain the idea of committing suicide. Always resort to God for help, because that is the only way that you could defeat the wiles of the devil. It is the devil who is giving you the idea to commit suicide. The devil is a liar. Don't believe in the devil. I hope that this video would somehow enlighten you about the problems of life, that these problems could be solved if you only believe in God. For my fellow Bible-believing Christians, I am doing my broadcast every 2 weeks. And if you would like to view my other videos, just go to YouTube, go to the word search and type my name, Edgardo Sambo, and you will find all the other videos there. And in case you would like to be given all the videos automatically, all you have to do is just to subscribe and to ring the notification bell, and all my videos from video number 1 to video number 22 will be given to you by YouTube in your cell phones. For today, I am wishing that may God be us all, and I am hoping that our belief in God will not waver whatever problems or whatever bad situations we are into. In the meantime, I would say, see you after 2 weeks, and may God bless us all. Thank you.